Hello and welcome. Tonight, relatives of slain NYSC member cry for justice, demand 200 million naira compensation in petition sent to NSAS panel in Abuja. Federal government files 7 amended terrorism charges against leader of proscribed IPOB Nnamdi Kanu. Governor Aminu Tambuwal condemns killing of 43 people in Sokoto market, asks army to deploy more troops to the state. And more tributes pour in for former U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell, who died of COVID-19 related complications. Plus we'll have international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina highlights intervention initiatives to boost Africa's creative industry.
On sports news, England's 3 Lions to play 1 match behind closed doors as a punishment for the unrest at Wembley Stadium during the Euro 2020 final.
And from Abuja, hope rises for production of local COVID-19 vaccine as 2 treatment therapies undergo clinical trial.
It's 3 years since Miss Linda Igwetu, a corps member, was killed by a police bullet in Abuja a day before her passing out parade. And now her relatives are seeking for redress and asking for 200 million naira as compensation. Their demand is contained in a written address submitted by their counsel to the panel investigating alleged cases of human rights violations by the defunct Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS in Abuja. 23-year-old Miss Linda Igwetu was said to have been shot dead by one Inspector Benjamin Peters in July 2018. Our correspondent Empress Simon reports.
Members of the panel investigating alleged cases of human rights violations by the defunct Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS in Abuja are resuming after more than 6 months of break.
Grateful to God Almighty.
Cross-examination of witnesses over. The panel is now receiving final written addresses of the council, among which is that of the relatives of the 23-year-old Miss Linda Igwetu, a corps member murdered in July 2018, allegedly by a police officer in Abuja, day before her passing out from the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC. The family is asking for 200 million naira as compensation for their loss.
The loss of a youth corper, in a very prime, is something that even the family will not, will not go over it in a very short time. The sister was shot and by the police and negligently was not attended to by the hospital.
But the counsel to the police argues that the matter is before the FCT High Court, and as such, the panel lacks the jurisdiction to adjudicate on the matter. The panel has adjourned to November the 1st, 2021, when the lawyers are expected to tidy up their final addresses. Meanwhile, information available to Channels Television shows that out of the 296 petitions received by the 11-member panel, 55 have been concluded, 75 have partly been heard, and 22 have either been struck out by the panel or withdrawn by the petitioners. Nigerians are eager to see the outcome of the investigations by this panel of inquiry. While the victims want compensation, the panel, however, says justice for all is its ultimate goal. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And for the Lagos panel, 131 days of sitting today ended with a valedictory session. The chairman of the panel, Justice Doris Okobi, who read out the decision of the panel, announced the award of 148 million naira to 23 deserving petitioners. Now, this brings to 410 million naira the total sum awarded to 70 victims. Justice Okobi also said the panel had concluded its investigations into the Lekki toll gate shootings, but it's still working on its report, which will be submitted to the state government, which is expected to declare the report public. The panel also gave petitioners the assurance that its recommendations would include compensation to victims of the Lekki toll gate incident if any of them was identified. Now, according to the chairman, recommendations would also be made for policemen who were victims of the NSAS protests. Petitions that have been partly heard and even those unconcluded or unheard will be sent to the supervising Lagos State Ministry of Justice, which may set up a human rights body to handle them. To legal matters now, the federal government has filed an amended 7-count charge against the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. The amended charge, which was filed by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, borders on treasonable felony and Kanu's alleged involvement in acts of terrorism. Meanwhile, the National Assembly member representing Anambra North Senatorial District, Senator Ifeanyi Oba, has approached a federal high court in Abuja seeking an order to be allowed to visit Kanu in custody. In a motion on notice dated October the 15th, Mr. Oba is praying for an order granting him leave to visit the defendant in DSS custody as part of his legislative oversight function.
To seek the court's order to visit Nnamdi Kanu in DSS detention. I've tried twice to go to DSS detention to see him, and I was asked to come to court, and that's the only route for me to see him. As a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria from the Southeast Zone, I think it was on me to seek a way on how I can see him and then get some information regarding to his detention and to know how we can be of assistance. We are contemplating using political solution. The Senate, we are also, the Senate caucus is doing something on that. And then I am also championing my own cause, you know, as a senator representing from the Southeast Zone political zone. So I want to come to court as well. And then the most important thing is that at this particular point in time, we've been doing a lot of things from the back end, but it dwells that I have to seek for this order in order to have access to him. And I think only the court can grant that to me.
In other legal matters, Justice Iyanekwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja has ordered the immediate release of the international passport of the former governor of Rivers State, Peter Odili. Justice Ekwo declared the seizure by the Immigration Service as illegal, unconstitutional, and an infringement of his rights. He further ordered the service to tender an apology to the former governor and restrain the NIS from harassing and preventing him from leaving the country or moving freely within the country. Justice Ekwo added that the seizure was a punitive act and no citizen should be treated that way, irrespective of status. The former governor had filed a suit against the Immigration Service, challenging the seizure of his passport at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, on June the 20th, 2021, on his arrival into the country. And in a related development, the leader of the proscribed Islamic movement in Nigeria, Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki, and his wife are challenging the seizure of their international passports by the Department of State Services and the Attorney General of the Federation at the Federal High Court, Abuja. In their separate suits filed by Femi Falana Chambers on October the 14th, They told the court that their passports were last seen in the possession of the National Intelligence Agency, which has denied having possession of the documents. According to them, in attempting to renew their passports through the Nigeria Immigration Service, it was revealed that the passports had been flagged by the DSS. They say all requests to remove the restriction have been ignored by the DSS. They're praying the court to compel the DSS and the AGF to release their passports. They also want the court to mandate the defendants to pay the sum of 2 billion naira each as general and exemplary damages for the violation of their rights to freedom of movement. Let's stay with the judiciary now, and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission today rearranged 2 British nationals, James Richard Nolan and Adam Quinn, who is at large before the Federal High Court in Abuja. They were rearranged for their alleged complicity in the controversial process and industrial development gas processing contract, leading to the arbitral award of $9.6 billion to P&ID Limited by a United Kingdom commercial court. Both were docked on 32 counts bordering on money laundering. After the charges were read to them, the third defendant pleaded not guilty. Adam Quinn was not available to take his plea, but the prosecuting counsel, Ekele Iheanacho, requested that not guilty plea should be entered for him, which the judge granted. Justice Okurukwo then adjourned the matter to December the 13th, 2021 for commencement of trial. It appears Nigeria and the United States are taking their collaboration in the fight against terror to a new level as part of efforts to address the menace globally. To discuss the modalities for the collaboration, the U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor, Mr. John Feiner, today met in Abuja with the nation's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyama. Although there are plans for other areas of cooperation, they say that tackling terrorism is a common priority for both countries.
Top officials of the United States government are meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs to hold bilateral talks. Before going behind closed doors for the continuation of the talks, the U.S. official and Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs addresses journalists on areas of priority.
This is a hugely important and consequential and close relationship for the United States, and I really want to start just by underscoring that. It is at the center of so many of our shared strategic priorities, from getting our arms around the global COVID-19 pandemic, to climate change, to the democracy agenda that President Biden has championed, to the range of shared security threats that we face, including terrorism. President Biden has been exceedingly clear that our foreign policy really will begin and end with our close collaboration with our partners.
The excellent relations that we have, especially with your government in place at the moment. And we were in New York for the General Assembly, and we're able to meet with your permanent representative, who is a very close and very dear friend of Nigeria. And we, looked at various areas of our bilateral relations and how to strengthen that.
And after the closed-door session, which lasted for over an hour, both diplomats share their commitments towards addressing insecurity.
We talked, of course, about the security situation in the country, banditry, the Boko Haram, the secessionist movements, and other acts and challenges to insecurity, including the Gulf of Guinea, and how we can cooperate with the United States in addressing some of those issues, in fact all of those issues. Security issues obviously are paramount, whether it's terrorism or piracy or anything else related to the security situation in this country that the United States can support. You mentioned democracy. The President is very much looking forward to convening the Summit for Democracy in December. A big pillar of this is going to be obviously issues related to elections.
related to corruption, and we discussed that agenda here as well.
Other areas of discussion at the meeting include how to improve bilateral trade, good governance, and climate change, amongst others. The meeting between the two diplomats may have ended, but it's still a work in progress on how to actualize agreements reached, particularly implementing the collaborative efforts that will help Nigeria to fight terrorism as agreed at the meeting.
In part 2, after the break, security operatives killed 10 bandits in Kaduna. Plus, Governor Tambuwal calls for deployment of additional troops to Sokoto State to tackle rising insecurity. That's all coming up in a moment. The join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Relatives of slain NYSC member cry for justice, demand 200 million naira compensation in petition sent to NSAS panel in Abuja. Federal government files terrorism charges against leader of prescribed IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. Governor Aminu Tambuwal condemns killing of 43 people in Sokoto market, asks army to deploy more troops to the state. And more tributes pour in for former U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell, who died of COVID-19 related complications. A police officer has been killed after armed men attacked a police station in a Hauku local government area of Ebonyi State. The public relations officer of the State Police Command, Loveth Oda, who spoke to Channels Television, said the officer died after being rushed to hospital following the violent incident. She adds that the attack, which took place late last night, and refuted reports making the rounds that some inmates were set free. The PRO says 2 vehicles belonging to the Ebonyi State Police Command were burnt by the gunmen. Ms. Oda also stated that the State Police Commissioner, Aliyu Garba, has visited the scene of the incident and called on people in the area to assist the police in its investigations. Meanwhile, a joint team of security forces have reportedly killed 10 bandits during an operation in Giwa local government area of Kaduna State. According to a statement by the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, the troops came in contact with the armed bandits on the outskirts of Fatika and subsequently engaged them in a gun battle. He says that 10 of the bandits were killed in the course of the exchange of gunfire with the security operatives, while several others escaped with injuries. He adds that one Abubakar Usman, who was suspected to have been kidnapped from a neighboring state and held by bandits in the area, was rescued by the troops and is being debriefed. The state government is appealing to residents of Fatika General Area to report anyone found seeking medical attention for questionable injuries. We stay with security as the death toll in the attack by bandits on a market in Goronyo local government area in Sokoto State has risen to 43. And this was confirmed this evening by Governor Aminu Tambuwal when the House Committee members on the judiciary visited him in this government house in Sokoto. Earlier today, Governor Tambuwal had called for the deployment of additional troops to the state to tackle the rising insecurity being experienced there. The governor made the plea while responding to the call by the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, who called for effective collaboration with the civilian populace. The governor also called on the military to carry out a simultaneous operation in all contiguous states experiencing cases of banditry and other security challenges in the northwest.
These criminals we are fighting are within us, they are not from the moon. And nobody will collect ransom and go on top of mountain and remain there. He must come to town. And his neighbors and his people know him. They see him. So if we interact properly, we will see them when they come. So security is everybody's business. That's what we said, and that's what we're working on. And that's why also, many a times, we have succeeded in apprehending several others.
The pressure from Zamfara to Army staff is continuing to mount in Sokoto. So we need you to please look into the operations in Zamfara, review it, and possibly carry out a simultaneous operation between Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara, Katsina, Kaduna, and Niger states, all the contiguous states, are in distress because of the oppression in Zamfara state. If you chase them away from Zamfara, they pander towards other states. I can tell you, the chief, our situation was not the way it is before the commencement of this operation in Zamfara. The operation in Zamfara has worsened our situation because there wasn't enough resources around here to form a blocking force that would have checkmated their exodus and foray into Sokoto state. So we need more personnel, we need more resources. Whatever you can do, we need all of that.
We have more on the Sokoto market attack, but let's cross over to Abuja now. Here's Gloria Umezuke. Gloria.
Hello, Ijoma. Good to see you. Well, there is certainly more reaction to the Sokoto killing. In Abuja, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, is vowing to crush those behind the killing of 43 people in Goronyo local government area of the state. In a statement issued by his senior special assistant on media and publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, President Buhari commiserated with the victims of the attacks, vowing that the days of the bandits are indeed numbered. The statement further adds that troops have been deployed to the affected areas and aerial security measures put in place. In another statement earlier today, the president felicitated with the Muslim Ummah on the occasion of Eid al-Maulud, seizing the opportunity to make the emphasis that insecurity is declining and not rising, and therefore the narrative that there is rising insecurity used by the media should be discontinued. To health matters, researchers in Nigeria appear not to be backing down in the global efforts to manage the spread of COVID-19 as 2 out of the 4 medicines for the treatment of COVID-19 undergo clinical trial. The Director General of the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development, Dr. Obi Adigwe, stated this at the ongoing conference on health access and socio-economic development in Abuja. Meanwhile, Nigeria's Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is calling for more funding and proactive support for local manufacturing capacity in order to achieve self-sufficiency in pharmaceutical products.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is among the dignitaries attending the International Conference on Health Access and Socio-Economic Development in the nation's capital, Abuja. The organizer sets the tone for the discussions here, highlighting some of his agency's interventions since the outbreak of COVID-19.
A few months into the pandemic, we further developed 4 products which have now received listing registration status from the regulatory agency NAFDAC. 2 of those products have now been put forward for clinical trials, and based on the high R&D standards in the Institute, we are indeed very hopeful that we would very shortly bring out a categorical response in that phytomedicinal area.
For the Vice President, the COVID-19 pandemic threw up gaps in Nigeria's health system, defining a new direction that the country must take to achieve self-sufficiency in pharmaceuticals.
Think what would have happened to India, which has reported the most number of infections in the world after the United States, if it did not have the capacity to produce its own vaccines. So it's evident that the way forward is more funding for healthcare and research, for our innovators, and to develop solutions in pharmaceuticals and medical consumables.
The outbreak of COVID-19 in Nigeria last year and its attendant effects on pharmaceutical supplies led to multiple health policies and interventions from the government and the private sector on the need to build local capacity for medical self-sufficiency. However, more may be needed to translate those policies and interventions into reality.
It's not even the issue of policy, it is the implementation. It's the people who are implementing the policy who have no pride in this country and would rather implement it for their own good rather than for the good of the country. That's the major obstacle. There are enough people in this country and there are enough plans and policies, but just that implementation, it boils down to that individual. What do you think of your country?
Many in this hall are hopeful that the suggestions from participants at this conference and the assurances from the Vice President will be implemented and help change the narrative.
The Chairman, Senate Committee on Appropriations, Senator Jibrin Barau, is giving assurances that the National Assembly is determined to pass the 2022 budget before the year runs out. Senator Barau says to achieve this target, the upper chamber has given its standing committees till November the 24th to submit budget reports to the Appropriations Committee. He was speaking to journalists after the committee's meeting at the National Assembly. The Senate has suspended plenary session until November the 9th to allow government ministries, departments and agencies defend their 2022 budget proposals before relevant committees. To other stories, the Nigeria Union of Journalists FCT Council has asked security agencies here in the nation's capital to be decisive in locating Mr. Todue Salem, a journalist with Vanguard newspaper. Mr. Salem, who covers the House of Representatives, has not been seen, heard from, or reached since Wednesday, October the 13th, 2021. According to reports, he was sighted on the evening of the day he was last seen before his disappearance. In a statement by the NUJ-FCT, the situation is described as troubling. The council asked the police and Department of State Services to beef up effort in finding Mr. Salem. When the News at 10 returns, AfDB President Dr. Akinwumi Adesina reveals that the global fashion industry will double in the next 10 years, generating close to $5 trillion annually. That's some business news. Do join us here.
Welcome back to some company news now. The Nigerian Breweries PLC is once again honoring outstanding teachers in the country through its annual Maltina Teacher of the Year Awards. Instituted through the Nigeria Breweries Felix Ohiwere Education Trust Fund, set up in 1994, the awards has recognized over 100 teachers since inception.
It's that time of the year when the Nigerian Breweries brings together stakeholders in the education sector to celebrate outstanding teachers and reward their excellence in teaching. Teachers from states across the country are gathered at the grand finale to vie for the coveted award, Maltina Teacher of the Year.
We are here to recognize, celebrate and reward some amazing men and women who remind us through their daily work that no society can exist without the solid foundation provided by a teacher.
The Nigerian Breweries Felix Ohiwere Education Trust Fund has remained committed to supporting the education sector by re-awarding high-performing teachers through this annual Maltina Teacher of the Year Award, despite all mitigating circumstances.
Ondo State Champion Sunday Fadeni.
First, 30 state champions are awarded prizes of 500,000 naira each. Then the big moment to unveil the Maltina Teacher of the Year.
Delta State James Hope College Agbo Abanika Taye.
Abanika Taye, a basic technology and technical drawing teacher, wins the coveted title, taking home 1 million naira instantly and for the next 5 years, plus a capacity development training. His school also gets either a fully equipped block of classrooms or a computer laboratory.
Honor is done to me by an organization, and I, in my own capacity, need to reciprocate that kind gesture by ensuring that children get the best out of education in Nigeria.
In its 7th edition, the Maltina Teacher of the Year Award seeks to change the narrative of education in Nigeria and restore the dignity of teachers by promoting positive learning.
And Sims Nigeria Limited, a leader in the distribution and sales of electronic products in the country, has introduced its latest Royal Signature air conditioner into the market. At the official launch in Lagos, the Executive Director of Operations, Sims Nigeria Limited, Mr. Okechukwu Eisi, described the home appliance as the first mirror-finish split-unit AC with Wi-Fi facility in Nigeria.
Within this hall are staff and management of Sims Nigeria Limited, a Nigerian company that specializes in the distribution and sales of electronic and home appliances.
We see newness in all of us.
For the company that prides itself in what it describes as affordable luxury, a new product from the Royal brand that incorporates technology, aesthetics and affordability is on the shelf.
We try to be a green organization as well, so we're playing a part. That's why this is the first smart AC with the R32 gas.
Features that other air conditioners don't give you.
Then the Royal Signature air conditioner is introduced.
It is inverter technology where the consumers have a chance to save up to 70% of energy. Then there are many features like which has been added to it. You can say like ion or say cool plasma. In the common man understanding, we can say it has many process of sterilization, deodorization, air filter, dust cleaner.
Now the icing on the cake, the Signature AC also comes with an app.
From the comforts of your car, you can use your app and turn your AC on. You can also forget to turn your AC off while you must have left the house in a rush trying to beat the Lagos traffic. You can from your car as well and turn your AC off.
If you're in this corner of the room and the AC is there, it can detect where people are and just face that direction and cool you off and all of that. And it's not the one that will just, it's fresh.
Sims Nigeria says the Royal brand also offers a lot of other products and home appliances which include high-definition television sets, floor and ground air conditioners, kitchen equipment, electric and rechargeable fans, amongst others.
For the rest of the business news, here's Anne Waudu.
Thank you, Ijoma. Hello and welcome to Business News. The president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, has expressed the bank's willingness to support the creative and cultural sector towards job creation, improving foreign exchange earnings and poverty alleviation. Speaking at a virtual meeting summit and the African Creative and Cultural Summit, Dr. Adesina highlighted interventions by the bank to stimulate growth for the sector.
The African creative and cultural industries offer employment to nearly 500,000 people. Now that's a good start, but it's time to give the creative space a boost. At the African Development Bank, we are convinced that a creative sector that is vibrant and dynamic will generate employment for Africa's youth and attract foreign exchange inflows and stimulate other industries such as tourism. For several years now, the African Development Bank has been at the forefront of the continent's fashion and textile industries through our bold, innovative Fashionomics initiative, through which we promote increased access to finance and help budding entrepreneurs gain traction. Many of them are women, and they are great. Our online Fashionomics platform links these young entrepreneurs to a global value chain of suppliers and buyers and connects them to service providers and mentors. The global fashion industry is expected to double in the next 10 years, generating up to $5 trillion annually.
The total loan approvals from Nigeria for Nigeria from the African Export-Import Bank has risen to an excess of $1.89 billion in 8 months. An executive vice president of Afrexim Bank, Dr. George Elombi, made this known today during an Intra-Africa Trade Fair 2021 roadshow right here in Lagos. He says that the bank's total loan exposure to the country had risen to $5.5 billion from January to August this year, and that represents 26.8% shares of the bank's total loans and advances. Meanwhile, he says the Intra-African Trade Fair set to hold in Durban, South Africa between November the 15th to the 21st is expected to generate more than $40 billion in trade and investment deals, which is an opportunity beneficial to the Nigerian economy. The Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise has reacted to the latest inflation figures published last week by the National Bureau of Statistics. According to the Chief Executive Officer of the former Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Ms. Dr. Muda Yusuf, the steady but marginal slowdown in headline inflation over the past few months is noteworthy. However, high inflation pressure remains key concern in the Nigerian economy, both for businesses and citizens. Let's head to the domestic market, where profit-taking on the shares of MTN Nigeria and Nestle dragged the domestic bourse south on the start of this week as volume of equities transacted today dropped by 56.5%. Will Ibong has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Life in the NGX market has been a rosy ride until today. The equities market sustained the losses observed at intraday, stumbling at the close of trade as the all-share index fell by a very wide margin, down by 0.7%. and shaving off a whopping 153 billion naira off the market capitalization. This loss is largely attributed to activities on market bellwethers MTN, Nestle Nigeria, and First Bank. Whoa! Could this be the straw that may have broken First Bank's back? Its share prices were down today by 7.48% to close below the 12 naira mark recorded on Friday. Now let's zoom in on the gainers for today. The Nigerian Exchange Group, fresh on the block, led the high performers. Its share price rose by almost 10% to close at 19 naira 50 kobo. Some investors may be wondering what direction the market is headed from here, as it is not a great start to the holiday-shortened week. But it could also be a Monday vibe, as we saw last week. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Willie Bong. It's back to you.
That's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawodo. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Ijoma.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, more tributes pour in for former U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell, who died of COVID-19 related complications. And more international news from our London studio. Do join us again. U.S. President Joe Biden has described former Secretary of State Colin Powell as a dear friend who embodied the highest ideals of both warrior and diplomat. And this tribute to the 84-year-old is coming as he died earlier today. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Colin Powell, the first black US Secretary of State, has died from complications from COVID-19. Powell was a distinguished soldier going from combat duty in Vietnam to becoming the first black national security advisor. For a time, he was considered a leading contender to become the first black president of the United States, but his reputation was hit when he pushed faulty intelligence to advocate for the Iraq War. A statement released by his family said that he had been fully vaccinated against COVID. He died at the age of 84. At least 26 people have been killed in floods in southern India after heavy rains caused rivers to overflow, cutting off towns and villages. 5 children are among the dead. There are fears the death toll could rise further as many people are missing. Several houses were washed away and people became trapped in the district of Kottayam in Kerala state. Days of heavy rainfall have also caused deadly landslides. Swollen rivers have washed away bridges connecting many small villages. China has denied reports that it tested a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile earlier this year, insisting instead that it was a routine spacecraft check. Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian told a media briefing that a routine test had been carried out to verify different types of reusable spacecraft technology, and that the report was inaccurate. Water cannon have been used in the Italian port of Trieste to disperse anti-Green Pass demonstrators. People have been gathering outside the port since the Italian government made the use of COVID-19 health passes mandatory. They say it is a violation of their human rights. Footage shows water hitting protesters and tear gas being used to disperse the crowds. Thousands of people in El Salvador have demonstrated against President Nayib Bukele for his authoritative stance. At least 4,000 people marched through the capital, San Salvador, with banners and signs rejecting Bitcoin, which officially became legal tender in the Central American country in September. They also criticized the removal of Supreme Court judges and the potential for Bukele to seek a second consecutive term. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has accused the US of kidnapping an envoy who was extradited from Cape Verde to face an American court. The US Justice Department charged Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab in 2019 in connection with a bribery scheme to take advantage of Venezuela's state-controlled exchange rate. President Maduro accused the US of violating all international rights. Saab is expected to make his initial court appearance on Monday in US District Court for the Southern District of Florida. The opposition candidate, Jose Maria Neves, has declared himself winner of Cape Verde's presidential elections. He took just under 52% of the vote, while his main rival, Carlos Alberto Veiga, got 42%. Mr. Neves served as Prime Minister from 2001 to 2016. He was the candidate for Cape Verde's largest political party. Footage has been released of a rare waterspout spinning off the Cuban coast of Cienfuegos. Waterspouts are tornadoes that occur over a body of water but never reach land. They are characterized by a funnel-shaped cloud. No damage has been reported on the island. Images show residents looking at the tornado in a residential area in Cienfuegos. And finally, Milan and Costa Rica have been named among the winners of a new environmental award created by Prince William, who criticized world leaders for an uninspiring response to climate change.
Is awarded to the Republic of Costa Rica.
The Duchess of Cambridge announced the winners during the ceremony. She and the Duke then met those shortlisted for awards via a Zoom call. The honours were established to find solutions through new technologies or policies to the planet's biggest environmental problems, with the winners each receiving £1 million. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Also sports news now. 9-time African champions, the Super Falcons, are confident they can earn a win on home ground this Wednesday in their 2022 Women Africa Cup of Nations qualifying fixture against Ghana's Black Queens. Both fierce continental rivals will slug it out at the Mobolaji Johnson Arena in the first leg of the feature, which will eliminate one of the best teams in women football on the continent. And outside the continent, England have been ordered to play their next UEFA competition game behind closed doors, with one more game suspended after crowd trouble inside and outside Wembley Stadium at this summer's Euro 2020 final. There were serious disturbances when England played Italy July the 11th as ticketless fans fought with stewards and police officers and forced their way into the stadium. Well, that's sports news. It's back to you, Gemma.
Thanks a lot, Coyote. And the main news again. Relatives of slain NYSC member Linda Igweto today cried out for justice and demanded the sum of 200 million naira compensation in a petition sent to the NSAS panel in Abuja. And Governor Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto State confirmed that 43 people were killed in a market in Goronyo. The governor also asked the Chief of Army Staff to deploy more troops to the state to tackle the insecurity there. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Munyato. Good night.